From the Captain's Quarters podcast is brought to you by Captain Coop's Beard Company for all of your beard needs, whether it's beard oils, beard balms, or if you are a sophisticated beardo, our beard butters, plus a pretty badass line of apparel. Check out CaptainCoops.com. Remember to use the promo code PODCAST10 and get 10% off your order at CaptainCoops.com. The show is also brought to you by Everything Hemp LLC. They have those D8 products in stock and ready to ship. Delta 8 next level stuff. Plus a full line of CBD tinctures, whether you need concentrates, topicals, even products for your pets. EverythingHempLLC.com, or give them a jingle and tell them Cooper sent you to call 715-532-4367, 715-532-4367 for Everything Hemp LLC. Drew Plotkin is back. The chief dude officer of Derm Dude returns. If by the way, I'm going to stop everybody right now. If you haven't listened to our first episode, which I believe is episode 84 of the From the Captain's Quarters podcast, go and listen to that, because then this will make a whole lot of sense. We got the background stuff. The journey from Jersey to LA was covered in depth on the previous episode. But Drew, how are we doing today, my friend?
I was going to say, or just Rent My Cousin Vinny. I think that movie, for people who remember, was somewhat similar, you know?
Imagine you're a deer.
Yeah, a deer. What's a ute?
the two utes. The utes.
I'm doing good, brother. I was actually looking forward to this, man. You know, we did the one last week. I didn't know what to expect. And, you know, the people here were like, hey, this crazy cat with tattoos and a beard wants to talk to you. And, you know, I try to avoid those tattooed and beard people. They can be scary. And I had some fun, man. And I forgot, you know, as we went through the whole thing and strolled down memory lane, we never even got into Derm Dude. So when you invited me back, I'm like, well, that's cool, because shit, that's my big thing right now.
Which is awesome. And obviously the bearded tattoo guy thing, we're like separated at, like, somehow you crossed the continental divide and we split this brotherhood. But you know, the beard stuff, I want to talk about getting into that, because let's back up. Let's start with tattoos, because this has obviously been a journey for you, and it seems like, and you and I have we've been around, we've traveled, you probably more extensively than I have, but like, as far as long in the tooth goes, like, we've experienced life and probably gone from a time and place where, like, tattoos were reserved for, like, rock star musicians, Harley riders, usually involved in some sort of leather gang with their colors on the back, to now being, I want to say, like, completely socially acceptable, but it's definitely the time and place, the time and viewpoint of tattoos is definitely altered over the past 3 decades or so.
It's almost like high school in the sense with tattoos, where, like, in high school there were 6 or 7 different types of people. They used to call them cliques, whether it was the athletes or the band people or the troublemakers and my friends. It's like with tattoos, you almost have 5-6 different categories like that. You have, like, your I don't know, your Malibu 90210 Park Avenue crowd who gets, like, 1 or 2 small little teeny micro, and I'm not knocking any of it, whatever is good for you, but it's like they're tattooed and you have to look and be like, oh yeah, you are. Then you've got, like, your traditional people who end up kind of, never stop at one, like people like me and you that were never going to eat one Dorito, probably never going to have one beer. And after the first tattoo, you're like, oh, fuck, I see where this is going. And then everything in between. I mean, you have a lot of professional athletes that, and every walks of life, so many moms, I mean, and the amount of women doing tattoos, which is great. I mean, I think that's amazing how big the category is. So yeah, it's insane. And I think, it's funny, but I think a lot of it is attributed to, one is, social norms, walls coming down. Obviously, you could say social media about anything, but we're seeing so much more of it all over the place. But the other thing is the art itself, and the artists have just gone through the roof. Yeah. Like anything else. I mean, the ability to create usually gets better and better with time. You have more tools at your disposal. You learn from other people. So, artists are able to look at other artists on Instagram and all over the world and things, and some of the tools that they're using, some of the ink, some of the tattoo products themselves to deliver the ink, techniques that people have come up with. People always comment on this tattoo says tribe, looks upside down right now, but and it's a brush stroke
Mhm.
style that was done by this amazing artist Georgia Gray in New York 8 9 years ago, and a lot of artists would not be able to replicate that. I mean, that's a certain technique and style that she did, and so I love that. I think that's a big part of also why tattoos have exploded the way that they have. I think it's a good thing, for the most part. It's it's art.
And the artists that you mentioned, I think it's a super unique field, and it's in comparison to all like in all styles of art. Music may be a little bit different because I think there is, depending on which genre, there does tend to be this go with what's hip. Like go like oh, I want to sound like that because that leads to success. Where if I find like in artists who use whether they paint or whether they draw or whether they do tattoo art, they will hone in and adapt some skills. And I think with the technology you mentioned, go on YouTube and learn different strokes and stuff. But there does seem to be this ever growing desire to find their own style to it could have some dabbles from this artist and dabbles from this artist, but each individual tattoo artist seems to have definitely their own distinct style, and definitely their own distinct style that they excel at. Like there's people who do really good like portraits, can excel at that, and there's some that do really good freehand stuff and some that do really eclectic design. So finding that right person, I think, for what the vibe you're going for, but the artistry across the board has excelled from remember them, the barbed wire tattoo was like, I don't know, like I'm not sure Pam Anderson like sent people into this weird cult following, like I got barbed wire around my forearm. You're like, well, okay,
Look,
don't cross that
so much
line.
has changed, and the access has changed. I mean, to where, first of all, tattoo shops, even calling them shops, they used to be tattoo parlors. It used to be
Yeah.
a parlor, and it was like, don't go in there. That's the bad side of town. But you had a lot of restrictions, even to where tattoo shops could be. I mean, where I live in Hermosa Beach, California, a good friend of mine, tattoo artist named Johnny Two Thirds. Guy's done over 25,000 tattoos, very talented, been doing it for a long time. He actually had to sue the city of Los Angeles for the right to open a tattoo shop in Hermosa Beach. He'd been turned down repeatedly to get a permit. Now, Johnny was also a pastor. He has 5 kids, homeschooling guy. I mean, on paper, he's like, as I was going to say the Duggars without a kid who molests people, but that was probably the wrong example.
Bad
But
timing.
meaning a good, by any definition, a very good guy. Some people might see someone covered in tattoos head to toe. Other people would look at pastor, great dad, big family. And he had to sue, and it went on for years and years. And while he was suing Hermosa Beach for the right to open the tattoo shop, and they kept turning it down because I lived there, guess what was right around the corner from me in Hermosa Beach was a porn shop where you could go in and buy, your lambs or your whatever the blow up toys are, and any of the books and costumes and capes and suckers and zizzlers and zaggers. That was allowed to be there. They had a permit. They were fine, but you couldn't have a tattoo shop because that would attract the wrong folk. And he ended up going to the Court of Appeals in California and won. And it ended up becoming case law for the country, where basically tattoos were protected under First Amendment, freedom of speech, and that had a lot to do with my good friend and tattoo artist Johnny Two Thirds. If you look him up, you're cheating hard. He's a great guy. If you don't go for a tattoo, just go in and say thank you for helping open the door to our First Amendment rights.
I've heard stories about that. My mom lived out east for a while in the Carolinas, and there were counties, like counties where tattoo shops were not allowed. So it's like having a dry county, like the dry counties in Kentucky and stuff, where people would go into we'll just cross the county line and we'll go to where you can buy booze. But there was counties in North Carolina when I went out there and visited her that they're like, well, there's no tattoo. You can't tattoo here in this particular county, but the one across the county line, and they would set up like literally here's the sign, Marshall County, and the tattoo shop is like right next to it, and they would just sit there and make bank. But it sounds like your dude has opened up the gates for some more of that action to go on across the country. So very cool stuff.
Yeah, so a lot of things like that. So you have access, and then you certainly have so many different styles, which I'm fascinated by. I mean, people say to me all, what do you think of that? Or there's so many styles and artists that I am so impressed with, and sometimes they're not styles of tattoos that like I would get for me for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they might not fit with my existing tattoos or some of the limited real estate that I have left, or it doesn't mean that I don't think it's tremendous art. I'm a huge fan of like a lot of the Japanese work.
Yeah.
Um, I just don't have the space or left on my body to really invest real estate in a great piece of Japanese traditional. You see people who do that, you usually end up doing a full sleeve, or they might do their entire back, or you have some of the guys in Japan who do like the entire suit. So again, it doesn't mean I don't appreciate it and think it's incredible. It's just also what's your own flavor, what fits with you. And I'm one big freaking hodgepodge. That's my style. If there's a style, hodgepodge.
Because you don't have like one artist. Like you've seen multiple artists. I'm guessing not just across the country, but across the world.
Yeah, that's become a big part of it for me, and it actually played a role in developing Derm Dude, quite frankly. My very first tattoo was about 20 something years ago. Actually, it was longer. I was outed recently. When I was like 19 or 20 in college, I got a really stupid, embarrassing tattoo on my leg, to the point where I actually, not even accidentally, but just, or not even intentionally, just never referenced it because I actually forgot it was there. I wouldn't even. So when people would say, when did you get your first tattoo? I was like, oh, about 20 something years ago on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. I got a little kanji symbol on my arm right there. And I truly believed it. Like sometimes I guess you believe your own bullshit when you read history. And like, oh, I forgot about that drunken night in college when you were 20 and woke up and I'm like, what the hell's that doing there? So, I would say that as I, did my first tattoos, my first 3 or 4 were with different artists. Just because I also didn't have enough taste or style or direction to, there wasn't a ton of difference. I mean, if you went to a good, decent artist, sterile environment, I was still in that phase of not walking in and picking something off the wall, but kind of using like some of the wall designs of like, all right, like you mentioned the Pamela Anderson, barbed wire. Mine wasn't the barbed wire, but I had like a tribal piece that, and it worked great. I mean, it's my history, and I don't cover anything up, and I've built other pieces around it, but you can see the evolution on your body over 25 years, and I like that. It's kind of my own roadmap and journey. When I ended up connecting with Johnny, 2/3 in Hermosa, he was the first artist that I started to do multiple pieces with, and once I had that comfort level of like, man, this guy's great. He's got it dialed in. I don't have to be like, oh shit, what's this going to look like afterwards? And I had such comfort with him. I did like 5-6 pieces. Like, hey man, you free next week? Hey man, you free? And then that's when I also realized, man, I love this guy's work, but for me, I see so many other styles. And I was talking to him about it, and he's like, oh man, he's like, I've been tattooed by 1,000 different people. He's like, and it was so cool hearing that from a tattoo artist. And that's when I started to like look around. A friend gave me a book of different tattoo artists, tattoo shops, and then had introduced me to the concept of someone who I'm very close with, introduced me to a shop in New York City called Bang Bang, which is still a really well-known shop around the world that hands down some of the best artists in the world go there. So about 10, 12 years ago, I went there for my first Bang Bang tattoo. And that really was like, all right, man, now this changed the game for me. It was a piece on my hand that was like a clock and glass and birds breaking, and so micro, the clock on my hand, that, without like a magnifying glass, I couldn't, but the lines held, and it just created this really unbelievable piece of art. What I would say was the first time, like I had tattoos before that had meaning, but this was fucking art.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, one, I'm going to need a lot more time to travel, or a reason to go around different shops and places and get tattoos. And 2, I'm going to need a lot more money. These fucking get expensive as you start getting up there.
And how does that? I mean, that's one of those things too that people. Maybe nowadays they make that connection, like what you're doing is not, I mean, obviously it's an expression of who you are. It's an expression of, some symbolism of artwork, of being able to kind of be a walking, piece of art with all these different artists that work on you. But the investment that you make, there's like motivational speeches that are like, the most important investment you can make is an investment in yourself. And tattoos may be monetarily one of the largest that are out there, because, and without question, artists who have that caliber of talent deserve to be paid what they get paid to do artwork that's it's forever. This is permanent unless you go get zapped by somebody.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm a big proponent of that. When people look, I don't think that you should be ripped off or taken advantage of, and there's no doubt that happens. Not by any artists I know. I'm fortunate, and I know a lot of people, so I ask around. And if it's a new artist, I do research first. And it's not too difficult to find out who's naughty and who's nice. And if you see someone on Instagram that has something that just looks unbelievably surreal, and then they don't have any legitimate artists following them. People say, how do you know if someone's legit or not? Well, if you don't know someone that you can call, which a lot of people don't, and that's cool. If you go on Instagram, you'll see that there's a types of artists, and they only follow really great legitimate artists. So you'll start to see the same artists following really other exceptional artists. It's not a competition. It's like a wonderful thing. It's like sharing art. If you see someone who's got something that looks too good to be true and tons of followers, but no very reputable artists that you've heard of following them, that's usually a sign that there's a reason that reputable artists aren't following this cat. It's called Photoshop, or someone that does a tattoo. And, one of the things that you should know if you're thinking of getting a tattoo is that it's how it looks the day of, but really how it looks when it heals. Yeah. And that's a huge thing, especially with people getting into micro tattoos and, have these smaller tattoos. The listeners won't see them, but you can see them on my fingertips. And, I'm 50 years old, and for my fingers and my collagen, my neck to hold some of these micro tattoos, those are artists that are really outstanding that I've trusted. And they're also artists that have said we shouldn't do certain things in certain areas, certain designs, because they didn't think they would hold up.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, man. When I have an artist say, I don't think we should do this because, or I don't want to do this because, I love that. And I think anyone would be crazy to push back. Here's another $100, please. Like the guy's saying, you're going to get a shit sandwich on your arm or your hand or your chest. This is not the right way to do this, but you want to, bribe them to do it anyway. I mean, so.
Yeah. That's the, having a reputable artist too. I think that coincides with that, because you will have people that come in and say, I want this and I want it right here and I want it done exactly this way. Some artists will go, okay, well, this is exactly what you're paying me for, is to put this here, without those recommendations of, here are some things to consider. This is going to happen in a year, in 5 years, if you gain weight, lose weight, all the things that happen over the course of someone's lifetime with tattoos. It's always nice to have somebody who offers those 2 cents of advice. Now, for you, how does your adoration for tattoos, and obviously you're embracing them and all the different types of artistry, how does that river flow into the creation of Derm Dude, which I know expands just beyond tattoos, but you mentioned that it was an integral part of why you developed your own product line?
Yeah, it is for sure. I'm grabbing my coffee right here, so I'm not leaving you.
I
I'm
understand.
Still with you. I've not left you. It looks like we had a walkout.
And that was a great... Apparently I said something that was offensive to the Derm Dude.
That would be pretty hard to do.
Hey, triumphantly, he has returned.
But since I was getting up and I saw on the table they'd positioned my tattoo therapy hat, I might switch gears.
Look at that.
So now I'm in tattoo therapy mode. So it's kind of, this one's my head's gotten too fat.
But no, it's brain. Yes. You've added brain cells since the last time we spoke. The hat didn't get smaller.
Well, and one of the reasons we came up with the tattoo therapy hat, and why we say that with Derm Dude a lot, is because, look, for a lot of us, tattoos are a lot of things. I mean, they're art, they're, celebration, and then they're therapeutic. I mean, some of mine are the best therapy I could have, and they never charge me for being late, and they never, tell me that I'm, wrong. So they're, better than a human being in a lot of cases that you tell your problems to. You just look down at your arm and you're like, I got it, man. All right, I'm feeling better. No, you're saying, how did the Derm Dude journey begin? So we talked about last week, my job, or making a living, was building and being fortunate to run an LA ad agency with a lot of great people that I was lucky enough to convince to work with me and stay with me for a long time, because you always want to surround yourself with enough smart people so you're the dumbest guy in the room, and I was able to do that. And I think that's why I did okay all these years. A lot of smart people around me, including a lot of smart women too. Some really great guys, smart guys, but a lot of smart women as well. So I was traveling out of the country to get a tattoo, and I went to Bali, and it was kind of a hybrid. There was an artist who was going to be there doing a workshop, who kind of traveled around the world, and a lot of artists do this these days. Kind of stopped with COVID, but picking it back up, where they might go to a really cool exotic place where you can come for 3 days, 4 days a week, and it's like a retreat where you get a tattoo, but while you're there, you're doing some yoga, a variety of different things, and you're turning it like into a trip and an experience. And there's a lot of components to it, and each retreat is different. Each artist does their own thing. And I saw this artist I'd been wanting to work with for the longest time, and he was going to be in Bali. I was like, man, I'd been going through some personal stuff, and I had a tattoo piece that I hadn't totally fleshed out, but the concept I knew what I wanted it to represent. And I met this artist before, but we'd never quite been able to get our schedules aligned. So reached out. He's like, yeah, come on down to Bali and we'll do this. And as soon as I got like the schedule and the itinerary, I was like, okay, day one, tattoo philosophy and integration. What the fuck? So you get there, and like we're like walking around like kind of rainforest area, and it's not just the tattoo artist. He's got like a healer, a shaman there.
Jeez.
He's got like a personal or a body movement coach there. I'm like, man, none of this stuff, and it was all really cool. It was like this really very cool experience, like a cool Polynesian house, just these three dudes that were all it was no longer even just about a tattoo, which is significant enough. It was like a journey to this tattoo, which for me was really cool at that time, because again, it was a healing purpose and meaning behind it, and a lot of different things that were going on in my life. So that tattoo integration day was the greatest, because instead of going to a shop or sending some emails and someone sketched, we just walked and talked, and we hung out in the pool, and we walked, and we got on motorbikes and rode around, Bali, and we'd be out like in the rice fields, just talking about life and my life and what brought me here. And later that night, a bunch of tequilas into it, he just shows me what he's been sketching, and he shows me this piece. I'm like, holy! It was like chilling, like how he put that together based on what I said, blew me away. But he did come up with it entirely like that just by listening to me. And it was a big piece across my chest. And then he spent about a day and a half tattooing it, and it was an incredible piece. Meant the world to me, and still, I love all my tattoos, but this one in particular really stands out for me for a lot of different reasons. What was interesting is the next day, after the tattoo, I only had about a day and a half left in Bali, so I was going to check out another part of the island, and I went to a town called Ubud. I went by myself, Ubud, Ubud, and I didn't realize at the time, but Ubud means healing or medicine is what it translates to, and it's kind of known to have these powers, and has a lot of products that we import around the world, including to the U.S., that are really good for skin, for different ailments of your skin, calming, soothing, hydrating, inflammation bringing down, a lot of different things that are found in products and ingredients in Bali that also were in Ubud. So this is the journey that really set me off on, I've got to do our own line at this point. I wanted to see the most of Ubud that I could, and I saw like one of these books or websites that really exist when you have 36 hours. You type in 36 hours and the name of a town. It's like I'm very thankful for the people who do this, and like they figured it out, man. Like I did more in those 36 fucking hours in Ubud than I may have done in 25 years in California. There's no doubt. And one of the things was hiking this volcano. And the reason it was perfect was because you're supposed to hike it right when you get to the top, right when the sun comes up. So you leave like your hotel at like 3 a.m. They pick you up when it's pitch black and freezing. And you and your guide start climbing at like 4 a.m. when it's pitch black. And you get to the peak of this volcano right when the sun is like breaking up over the clouds. Oh, sorry, that's supposed to be those. So that's like coming up, and it's really cool. And then it's coming up over the clouds. We make it to the top, and one thing I realized is I'm wearing like a white t-shirt. I had just had this tattoo done maybe like 13, 14 hours earlier, so it's raw. Yeah. It's like as and normally, like in a proper setting, if I get a tattoo at a tattoo shop, I go back home or I go to a hotel, I take a fast warm shower, clean it up. Everyone has their own process, but this was like traveling, you know, third world. So I hadn't been paying as much attention to the aftercare as I usually would or should have been. And I look at my t-shirt, and my white t-shirt's black, and I'm dripping sweat because you're starting out wearing heavy clothes. It's freezing, but you get super hot at the top. I'm like, geez, I thought I wore a white t-shirt. Isn't that crazy? And I take out my phone and I scroll back. Like, I was wearing a white t-shirt when we started the hike a few hours earlier. Is what I had, all the volcanic ash had totally turned my white t-shirt completely black with volcanic ash. And on top of it, the tattoo was all right here. And at the time, I was wearing, it was only a couple of years ago, but I was in my 1980s V-neck phase that people made so much fun of me around work and life after I finally got out of my V-neck phase because I couldn't take the harassment. But so like this part of my chest was totally exposed, and I was just black with ash. I'm like, this can't be good, you know, can't be good. Still had to go down the volcano afterwards. And literally as I got back in the car and I'm riding back towards the hotel, and you know, at this point, I knew we had like about an hour at the hotel where I could get back, shower quickly, get my stuff, and the airport was like a good 2-hour drive to make the flight back to the U.S. But I was like, it was burning, it was itching. I'd had enough tattoos to know this ain't good. This is, man, getting on a flight like this. And my driver pulled into the local town of Ubud, and I started to like sample and you know, buy like small, like, you know, potions of things, and a lot of them were ingredients that you would find here in the U.S. Some were not, some were more unique and locally mixed and stuff. But basically, I grabbed whatever I could, all the money I had, went back to the hotel, did my shower, and then as I got to the airport, I just started experimenting and putting these, and I didn't know for sure. I mean, I had a sense from speaking to each person. There were little lists of what ingredients, but I kind of did my home remedy on the flight home. And I really expected to get home when that plane landed back in LA and take off my shirt and like have either half this tattoo gone or like be bleeding.
Yeah.
And it looked like brand new. It was like fucking perfect. And this like concoction of all, and again, part of it is that, you know, the Balinese culture is very healing in itself. The products that they use, the ingredients, they're about comfort, they're about treating, they're about healing, they're about pleasure. So it's not like I was rubbing rocks on myself, hoping that it would take the inflammation down.
Right.
But what it really did was it kickstarted me into, you know, I'm a guy with a bunch of tattoos, and you know, I don't necessarily have the best plan for taking care of them. I'm using like a tube of petroleum jelly, a Vaseline-ish type thing. Like most people thought that that's all you could use, which in my opinion creates more damage than good in a lot of cases. There were a couple of different products out there that were being marketed by, you know, these big marketing companies with all their suits and ties on, and you know, never had a tattoo in their life unless it was like Mickey Mouse on their ass from a drunk weekend in Vegas. And, you know, then I was seeing like all these, you know, Shark Tank brands and all these Shark Tank investors, you know, behind all of these tattoo brands. I'm like, these people don't have tattoos.
Right. Right.
And I did a bunch of the commercials with the Shark Tank people for years in my LA agency. So good people. I mean, I've worked with most of them and liked them, but you know, these are not tattoo people. I'm like, so what does it matter to me that, you know, Shark Tank was like, it's like, you know, so I had been at that point where, you know, 15 plus years in the LA ad agency business and seeing, you know, the good parts and the bad parts, the good, the bad, the ugly. And there is a lot of fluff and bullshit that happens with brands and products. And I didn't want to be a part of that. Certainly not, you know, at this stage of my life. So, you know, came back and spoke to some of the people I work with and some people who I really wanted to run it by them and say, you know, we've been talking about doing something for a while. What if we created, you know, a line of just tattoo aftercare for guys, you know, but make it really good and you know, let's like really research it, find the right ingredients for a lot of reasons, nothing for marketing purposes. Let's start with what's the best and then worry about how to sell it later. And then that quickly became, okay, but if we're going to do a tattoo aftercare bomb, then people need a tattoo sunscreen, right? I'm like, well, yeah, I wear sunscreen. So then we got into the sunscreen phase, and then the beard trend started to really take off, not just like with some dudes having beards, but like it became really huge even before the pandemic. And I'd never been able to really grow a really good beard. This is the truth. We have tons of pictures. I had an okay beard, but after like 6, 7 days, I would have to shave it because it would just get patchy and scratchy. So we started just researching it and talking to the different labs and different groups that we'd worked with for years on other people's brands. We'd sold hundreds of millions of dollars of skincare and personal care and beauty products for women, for everything under the sun. So we understood it. We knew where to go. We know who to talk to, who not to. But now we were doing it, kind of with myself as the guinea pig. So we started developing a beard line. And first, we knew we needed a beard oil, then a beard balm, and then we're like, well, we should have a wash or shampoo and conditioner. And then started speaking to master barbers. And my main guy had been doing my own hair and beard, and he's like, well, the biggest problem people make, guys, is they use their normal shampoo to wash their beard, and that normal shampoo strips your face and your beard of the oils you need. And I was like, man, I've been doing that so there was such this gap, of like, here I am, this almost 50-year-old dude who'd been like in the personal care business for many years, like working on brands hands-on that people are spending a ton of money on. And my goal was sell product, make money, come up with the marketing things. There were people who were on the ingredient side much more at the time. But once I started to dive into that and say, man, but nobody's doing this for guys. There's a few, there's some fluff, there's some funny ads, haha, I laugh, and I like being funny. I'm pretty irreverent. You can just tell by looking at me, let alone if you hear some of the shit I say. But I didn't want to just be funny. I wanted to have fun, but we wanted to make something, a brand that really every single product was something that I would use, that my friends would use. And that's really how we started doing it. We started testing everything on me. The guys around the office. I have friends in Texas, New Jersey, across the country from all different ranges. I have friends that are U.S. Marshals. I have friends that are Wall Street business guys and everything in between. And I was sending them the same products, but it would come in like white tubes without any labels. They weren't, how do you think of this one? All right, here's the next generation. What do you think of this smell? And we really ended up dialing in, what guys or dudes, like real dudes, wanted and loved. And that really became Derm Dude really quickly. And then when it started to pick up and really run, then it became, all right, let's really try to build this out as quickly and efficiently as possible and meet the need and go full into it. And that's really where we are right now. I mean, we started dipping our toes in the water, and now, we have 9 different scents in our body wash. Of our 3-in-1 body wash we just released, and initially we came out with 3 scents. I like this one a lot. It's our cedar citrus. What's funny is, being funny and a little irreverent, one of the ones that naturally it's always our biggest seller. We have a scent called Morning Woodsy.
Of course you do.
Now the funny part is, in our beard balm, in our beard oil, anything that's scented, Morning Woodsy is the first. I posted a thing on Instagram yesterday. Like we got, I think like 250 cases just back in, and we had it delivered right here to the office. And there's a picture of me sitting on top of it, like guarding it, because it's like we can't get it in fast enough. But the smell is incredible. It really is. But the name and that combined, so everybody loves that. But then we get, we have like Alpine Fresh, and we have some fun ones. We have cherry whiskey. We have this one's one of my favorites because I love the name, Havana Cigar Club, because nice. People do like that tobacco smell, not like a dirty ashtray, but some people like that humidor classic smell that might remind them of grandpa or their dad smoking, after dinner or something. So the scents are super popular, but the 3-in-1 body wash wasn't accidental either. We thought of, all right, what's most guys want to do? They want to have one thing that they can shampoo their hair, condition their hair, wash their body and their balls and their ass, their sack and crack, everything, one bottle, all in one, so if you buy 2 of them, you could put one in the gym shower or your gym bag. But we don't want 3 and 4 products to accomplish the same thing. We're going to lose them. Right. We're going to overpay for them. Our buddy's going to snag them because he's a cheap bastard, so he'll snag them. And that's where we went. I mean, obviously the core that we're based on is our tattoo and aftercare balm. We've got our tattoo sunscreen. We have 3 different types of our tattoo sunscreen. We have a 30 and 2 different SPFs. I lost it in the mix here somewhere, but it's there. We've got our all-natural deodorant now. Mm-hmm. And again, it took us a while. I mean, everybody was coming out with aluminum-free deodorants. And I remember, we got to get going. And we kept going through rounds and rounds and rounds. And the one thing that's hard is the truth. When you use an aluminum-free deodorant, it's hard to find one, and even harder to make one that really works for a guy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we sweat. I'm 240 pounds, 6'4". I sweat, and every sample I would try and you know, every lab we would speak to, every chem, oh, but you know, when you take the aluminum out, that's what's really making the big difference. So, well, yeah, but that's going to kill you. Oh, and that's why we're taking it out. And then someone said to me, you know, go to the stores, go to Target, and buy a bunch of aluminum-free deodorants. It's great. You'll feel better about yourself, but see how they work. And they didn't work. They were so we spent more time and more money and probably spent an extra 6 months until we really got it dialed in. And finally now have 4 cents in our aluminum-free deodorant that passed our internal test of, all right, you know, the labs pass it and manufacturers are good with it and people may like it, but are we good with it? And, you know, and there's times where even after we spend the money and complete something, we'll walk away if it's not right. If we can fix it and it makes sense, great. But if it's a walk away, or if it's, you know, we'll walk away.
Yeah, I love the origin story is always. I love hearing how things began. You know, because most of the time when I talk to people that come on this show that are living life on their own terms, you know, kind of the underlying point of this whole show is there's always like a self-serving need. Like I needed something, and by happenstance, the bodily story is amazing and the healing powers of that area as well. But because of the situation you were in, you were like, oh, I need to figure something out. Holy shit, it worked. And then it becomes something that you're invested in, but it almost feels like it opened up this perspective. Like both you and I grew up probably using, you know, like mom's shit. Like, oh, we have and then Head and Shoulders came out with like the 2-in-1, like, oh, the shampoo and conditioners in one. We're like, oh, well, this is clever. Well, now first there was bar soap, then there was body wash, and then there's like all of this shit. Like it's never been correctly marketed, I think, to okay, maybe the general populace of males, you know, I don't want to name names, but there's brands that have really tried to become like this. We're the guy brand, you know. There's, you know, here's a man who's also a horse, and he is going to, and you're going to smell like this, and it's so broad, and I think it sells this point of like, well, I guess if I wear this, then I'm more of a dude, but it's not really. They didn't sit in a booth somewhere and say, how can we really make a product that actually works, is functional, and fits the clientele that we're going after? But it seems like with you, like you have an understanding with your work in the ad agency, with working with brands that are trying to do maybe some of the things that I just mentioned, to be like, no, like let's get it right. And because you're invested in it, because you're looking for those products yourself and for the people around you, you know, you put the time and effort and you make the hard decisions to be like, yeah, we invested in this and the shit just doesn't work. And it's not going to, you know, super serve us in the end, because it takes one product in a great line of products to be like, well, that was the thing that blew it all up. But to have that passion level, it has to feel good to be involved with this project, knowing that you're doing things the way that things should be done.
Well, that's it. You know, there's part of you that knows a little too much, and you wish that magically you could beam what's in your head into everyone else's head so they know it all, because you can't get it all across in a short little Facebook ad or on a website post. That's why I like doing shows like this and having, you know, talking and informing people. I don't want to say educating because it's boring and shit. Nobody wants to be educated, or we wouldn't have been ditching out of school if that was the case. But people do want to be informed, and they want to be spoken to, not spoken at, and they want to know their choices. And one of the things that is a very common process in all of the world of cosmetics, men's, women's, everything, is fairy dusting. And what that is, simply put, it's what it sounds like, is, you know, you have to disclose on your labels the ingredients in your products by law. You don't have to disclose the percentages. And it didn't take the big marketing companies too long to figure out that was the best way to hoodwink people in a multi-trillion-dollar over the years industry, and billions each year, is okay, so this is a really hot ingredient and everybody wants that ingredient, and everything says this is, you know, it's trending in all the magazines and the celebrities are using it. Well, we'll put that in our product too. Oh, but it costs a lot of money. It's an expensive raw ingredient. Well, then we'd have to charge too much. People might not buy it. The competitors might charge. So here's what we'll do. We'll fairy dust. We'll just put a drop of it in, sprinkle, so that we can put on the label that it has that ingredient, and then when they Google it, and then when they, oh, I'm using this because it has, we use a lot of babassu oil in various products of ours, and we didn't come up with it. We didn't find it. There's not a video of me on expedition in the Amazon where a lot of where babassu comes from, babassu oil. But the reality is, I believe, and we found that it's a really smart ingredient for certain products. But what's special about the way that we're using babassu oil is we use a lot of it. We use a really healthy, good amount to give the end result and the benefit that we're offering and promising that the product has. If I put in just a fraction of the amount I actually use, it technically still has babassu oil. It's not going to have those benefits that our babassu oil product has, because we're obviously using the right amount to deliver the promise. And that's going to, help with inflammation. It's going to help make your skin softer, and it's going to help all of the goals that you're buying this product for in the first place. Same thing with grapeseed oil. We didn't come up with the concept, but when people use our product and say, oh, this isn't greasy, other products are greasy. Well, that's the grapeseed oil. It's super light, and it's hydrating. It's super light. And why don't other people use it? Well, it's expensive. And sometimes there are people that can sell their products, cheaper because they're spending a lot less on the ingredients. I mean, that's the truth of the matter, And
I think there's the underlying thing, I think, is when you care about what you're putting out there, and it's not just like, well, sure, put the name on it, slap something clever on the advertising campaign, and let's make 60% profit on our product. If you are like, I actually want this to be beneficial to the person who puts it on because I'm the person that puts it on, like it takes on a whole, like every entity, every part of that business takes on a whole new meaning, because you're not afraid to ask somebody who knows, like, hey, like how much of this should we be using in order for it to actually make a difference? I don't give a shit about price point or price per gallon, but I want to know what makes this the most effective. If you're not, and you talked about surrounding yourself with smart people, that becomes a part of it too. When I got into, starting my own business, I was like, I feel like I need to be in control of every fucking thing that goes on day to day. I need to know the ingredients. I need to test everything out. I'm not going to let anybody else in my circle. And then it took me like 6 months to go, I'm an idiot and I'm sorry, everybody, but I need to ask questions. But when you have that ability to let down that, protective piece and let the world into it, and let the smart people come in and say, this is possible, this isn't. And the way you did it with, I think, that direct research. Here's our white label product. It doesn't even have a name, no ingredient list, no clever saying, no FDA approval. Try this and give me honest feedback. I mean, nobody does. It feels like not many companies do that anymore. They're really willing to slap the label on, put the fairy dust in, hire a hot chick to, apply it to said, muscular actor in their, in their Facebook video, and then sell you a bunch of shit.
No, it's funny when we pick scents, especially in the beginning, the different scents to go through. We would have 30 or 40 different, sample scents from any one of our labs and suppliers, and they'll say the name of at least what the lab is calling the scent. Like it might say coconut this, or it might say, cherry this, such and such, what they think the name is, just for reference, along with a number. And it would drive people crazy here, because I'd walk around the office and go up to everyone and say, here, smell this. Well, what is it? You tell me. No, but what's the name of it? I'm like, I don't know. And I would actually hold my hand over the label. I wouldn't let people hold it, because I didn't want them to look and see, because what we found, if they saw what the name was, it would change their entire perception once they smelled it, and versus where if they smelled it without any preconceived notion, without any instruction, just what does this smell like to you? Is it good? Is it bad? What does it remind you of? How it does make you feel? And that's how we went up with our entire naming scheme. And sometimes, we have our island rum scent does come from an initial scent that had coconut in the name, which makes sense. Coconut's so distinctive.
Right.
But we have we have a scent coming out in a few weeks called vanilla bourbon. And myself and about 8 other dudes in the office, like every one of us was like, oh, wow, vanilla. And it's like vanilla whiskey, vanilla bourbon. Even when I went back to my lab in the manufacturer, and they're like, there is no vanilla in this. I'm like, I don't care. It's what we smell.
Right.
And what I want to communicate to the person buying it, the dude, is you're going to smell something that smells like vanilla bourbon. Like, use your imagination. I don't care if what's in it is in your mind on paper going to make it smell like, lavender. It smells like this to every single dude, so that's what we're calling it. So the customer gets what they're expecting by the name of it. And it's been cool because it's a grassroots thing that we started out with, and again, most of the brands, all the brands that we've been working on for at least the last 10, 12 years, they've all been, 50, $100 million brands, public companies. We did commercials for T-Mobile outside of skincare. We did all the big fitness brands. And in the world of skincare, it was all the celebrity brands. And some of them were doing, hundreds of millions a year. So there wasn't that grassroots process.
Right.
It was outside focus groups and all of this different, this MBA here said to do this, and it's like, I mean, maybe there's a time and place for all of that, but definitely not for Derm, dude. That wasn't that was the world I had wanted to get out of. And
Right.
Derm, dude, was the world I wanted to help create and get back into, where I felt most comfortable, where I would want to buy. And that's the thing. I mean, I look at everything and say, would I want to buy this? I'm almost 50-year-old dude with a beard and tattoos, and like anyone else, I get stinky at times, so I need to wash, and use deodorant. And if it's not something I would use myself, I couldn't imagine selling it. It just doesn't make sense.
Is this, I mean, of all the things that you've been able to experience and projects you've been able to be a part of, and is this do you find this to be the most rewarding because of the process, because of the grassroots, because of how the whole concept really originated on the island? I mean, did you feel like this is my jam?
I do. I mean, I'm still in the rush phase of, so many things. Like right now, I don't know how many tens of thousands of units of inventory between, ordering each day, and some of it on boats, some of it having to fly in with the supply. So there's that logistical part of it,
Yeah.
which, you now have to be involved in all of it. I've been able to hire some other people who are, very smart in those areas to help as well. But it's on me to make sure that I'm part of all that and okaying all of it and playing my part in that. Only one person can drive the ship at the end of the day. So if you're not, then you're going to fall asleep at the wheel. You can't blame someone else. So it is a rush. I find myself a few different times forcing myself to stop and take it in. An example is, I had about 15 or 20 guys over last weekend at my house with all my son and their sons. It was a school thing, a beach day. And I was realizing I needed some more sunscreen, just ran in my house and I grabbed, it's here somewhere. I'm going to go nuts if I don't find it. Well, I'll see it right afterwards. It's probably standing right at me. But this one. And I literally reached in and I grabbed our sunscreen. This one's still in the pack, and I'm sitting there outside, and I'm putting whatever. And one of the guys, oh, is that your brand? I'm like, oh yeah, it's mine. No, but this is your brand. I'm like, oh, it is, yeah. Like in my mind, I didn't even stop and think whether it was an old can of Coppertone or whatever else I had sitting there that I'm running through because I'm still too cheap to toss it out before. But it was like it was and I had been noticing to myself like how much I really went in. Tattoos, I take covering my skin very seriously. Yeah. So they're passing it around, everyone's using. And I'm like, so I had a moment, and I reached out to a couple of people who've been, such a big part of this journey with the blood, sweat, and tears, as they say. And I said, I'm sitting out here in the sun with my kid, and wasn't even thinking about the work or anything, and I'm using our product that we developed, everything about it, and it just feels great. And yeah, so it is rewarding. And there've been some rewarding aspects in my career, but this was probably the most rewarding so far, and the thing I'm most excited about going forward for sure.
And that's super important. That moment of, even if it's just a moment, because I have a feeling you operate much along the same frequency where I do, where those moments, they come, and then it's like, well, on to the next thing. All the issues that you talked about with, shipping and with the supply chains and things like that. But I think it's so important to have those moments where you're like, holy shit, like all that went into this, the origin story that you mentioned, the people that got involved with it, the people that gave you honest feedback, you keeping on wanting it to do it your way, even though I'm sure along the way people were like, you know, you could do this a lot easier. There's a streamlined way that you could go from A to B, throw a label on it, hire a hot chick, and you're good to go. But to be able to keep it on your terms, I mean, all that appreciation that comes out in that moment where you're like, yeah, holy shit, like this is
Yeah.
how cool is that? I mean, that those moments of appreciation are super important because I think they help propel you to keep you going, keep you motivated to keep growing and doing more cool things.
Look, I think what you just said is a trap a lot of people fall under. Of here's how you do it because that's how they've done it, or
Yeah.
here's how we've always done it. And yeah, you don't want to throw away the roadmap. You don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There are shared learnings. There's experience and history you can draw from in most situations. That's a smart thing to look at and consider and weigh out and use to a degree when it makes sense. And don't be afraid to throw it out when it doesn't. And by that, what I mean is, and I say this to people all the time, if there was a formula that all you had to do was follow and say, well, these guys did this, so do that, wouldn't everyone be retired living on an island right now?
You think?
I mean, and it's not meant to be that way because passion doesn't come from a formula. Innovation and passion come from internal, and from the need and the need to fill a void and the desire to fill that void for whatever your purpose is. And that's what I draw from. So I get a little bent. People will know sometimes if they get it too much, like, well, okay, you can do that, but these guys did this, then go fucking buy that. I mean, if it's been done, and so what? So it worked for them, but there's 17 different variables that, and that's not the business I'm in to go. When TikTok was like really taking off, I remember everyone's all you got to do is start a TikTok channel, and whenever someone has a viral video, just copy it and do the same thing. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm like running around like a chicken trying to copy stupid things that who knows, like that's not me. That's not,
Right.
what I'm going to be into or doing. And I like TikTok. I think that is a really cool channel and we'll be doing some stuff there shortly. But my point is that if all you had to do was imitate what other people did, then everybody would, have 100 million followers and subscribers. Everybody would have, $1 billion in the bank. So for me, I just say, okay, what's our path? And that's what I try to, be a part of carving out and being with the team.
Yeah, despite all the trends, there is a certain sexiness to authenticity. And I think that maybe rings through to keep the tribe, and to the clientele that you want and market to the people that you know will appreciate the blood, sweat, tears, effort, energy that goes into putting something out. Like being authentic about it and straightforward with it and not being like, here is because the cookie cutter formula is real easy to find. I'll pull up Instagram, we'll find it in 3 seconds. I'll just start going beard oil and boom, you'll have 14 different companies that use the exact same, you know, standard operating procedures to put their product out. But authenticity, real legit, here's who Drew is, here's the product, here's how badass it is, and here's what we took to make it. Like, people gravitate towards that. I think outside of the ambiance of, well, TikTok, the trends that everybody's doing it. If you did it, it'd be super cool. Like, we'll do it, but we're going to do it on our terms, the way we want to do it, because you start doing it the other way and the enjoyment level starts to decrease rather rapidly.
And it's well said, Coop. And I think there is a way to be bold, but also be humble. I know that might sound like a contradiction to a lot of people, but it's not to me. I think, we are, willing to get up there in someone's grill and make the point of, what hasn't worked in the past, why this is different, why we think, Derm Dude is unique and different and better. But at the same point, we absolutely know, we're certain that we can always improve, and we'll be doing that in everything, every aspect of life, but certainly with our brand. And we really look for that feedback from people. Where we ask people for reviews or feedback, I'm not asking for 3 words of fluff. Love it, great. But I really want to hear from people. What you love, what you don't love. Don't make it up. If you don't love something, don't say that. Or if you don't dislike something, you don't. But I mean, just tell me for real, because we want to hear from the consumers. I could hear from myself all day long. I can hear from people around me in the office all day long. I mean, I can call my friends, and at some point they're going to be a little bit biased, even the ones that don't like me. But there's nothing. We have a saying that whether we're right or wrong isn't up to us. America will tell us, and we just want to hear that. what they have to tell us. And then, if they love it, we want to make it so that they love it that much more ongoing. And what else can we do that they'll love? And if we're doing something wrong, we want to know that so that we can fix it as quickly as possible. And then we'll say, we'll own it. If we made a mistake, we'll own it. We're not going to point the fingers.
I think it's an amazing trend that's happened with brands like Derm Dude and several others, a handful of others, where there is a point where you do listen to the consumer. And you're probably pretty good at weeding out bullshit. You've been involved in LA bullshit for how long, the fluff and stuff. So you understand when somebody's just talking shit for the sake of talking shit. But when somebody gives you an honest answer or an honest review and they're like, hey, this was great, but this, was a little bit of an issue for me. And you can gather that data and actually use what the consumer says to benefit themselves and obviously the brand, where before it's instead of just waving the flag, no, here's the island that you come to because we have all this stuff. It doesn't really matter what you think because here's where all the good stuff is. There's a real value in that connection with the consumer. I think social media ties that nicely in. Can be used for good, can be used for evil, yes, but to have that feedback from the consumer, honest feedback, is a marketing tool that it's people can pay for it, and sometimes you get what you pay for, but sometimes that honest feedback comes free of charge because people are willing to say, hey, this was great, but this wasn't so great, and you can take that and use it to your advantage. Use the power of the force for good.
Well said. Yeah, that's spot on, man. So, no, this was fun, man. I'm glad that you had me back. I think, as other stuff comes up, I hope we do it again because I've enjoyed it.
No, man, absolutely. Where can people find Derm Dude stuff online? I know you guys are all over the socials. We'll tag you in the podcast notes and stuff, but let people know where they can find all the goodness.
Oh yeah, man. Dermdude.com. It's pretty easy to find us at this point. If you scroll down the page, you'll see a big tattooed bastard with a beard covered in a human condom. That's me. As you scroll down, walking around in a human condom with nothing else on, telling people to protect their tattoos. Our slogan is, or mantra, whatever you want to call it, on our website is Derm Dude, touching yourself just got better. And our body wash, we like to say that life is full of assholes, don't smell like one. So, again, we're not just trying to say things to be crass. We're trying to make a point that gets people to listen, but they understand what we're saying and why.
Yeah, you know how to talk to your audience, Drew, and I appreciate the time, man. I know it took us a while to connect, but we finally got back-to-back episodes knocked out. It's great hearing your stories and in the journey that you've been on and what's gotten you where you are. And again, a dude that's fully living life on his own terms and doing it the right way. I appreciate your time, man. I know it's money, and it's meant a lot to me. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for having us, Coop.
Awesome.
Talk to you soon,
Take
brother.
care of yourself, brother. Thank you so very much for checking out this episode of the From the Captain's Quarters podcast. Drew Plotkin, dermdude.com is the website. Go check out their fabulous stuff. Since you're still here just hanging out and listening, whatever podcast platform you happen to be on, whether it's Apple Podcasts or it's Spotify or it's the iHeartRadio app or it's Amazon Music, wherever, please make sure you subscribe. And also, the biggest thing you can do for us is leave a 5-star rating and share this podcast with everybody you know, with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, with your pets, everybody across the globe. That helps us bring you even more content. Also follow us on all the socials. Just search From the Captain's Quarters.